did we go from having this conversation of, okay, we're going to expand your role to now we're kind of taking everything out of the way? And went back in and asked them, I'm like, why? Why is this happening? And what they said next hit me harder than what they had even told me before. And they said, Tami, this wasn't up to us. This isn't what we think you deserve, but we did not have control over this. And I'm sitting there thinking, if I don't have control and my managers don't have control, who is controlling where my career is going? And it was in that moment that I realized that I didn't want to live that way. I didn't want to live with someone else pulling the strings or deciding where I was going to go.
Hello, welcome to Monetizing Mompreneurs podcast, where I take you behind the scenes with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, moms, working professionals, and amazing people pursuing their passions and going for their dreams. And I'm your host, Linda Mendable. Tami is a success coach, energy shifter, author, and speaker who inspires successful professionals who are dreaming to do something new and make better decisions. Her #1 bestseller book in Amazon, You Already Made the Decision, You Just Aren't Happy with It, is a guide on how to make better decisions or live with the ones you've already made. Tami has made it her mission to liberate independent, success-minded professionals from the shackles of a corporate career so they can start and grow their business and not only replace their income, but exceed it. I have Tami with me. Tami, welcome to the show. I am so excited for you to be here.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so excited to be here with you and talk to your audience. Like, I love mompreneurs, so I'm excited to be here sharing.
Yeah, I can't wait. I know our audience is really going to love this episode. I know that they're going to get a lot of good input from you, especially with your Amazon book. Hello. I know that sometimes I get stuck on certain decisions that I make, and I have definitely learned to be like, hey, this is a learning lesson. This hasn't been a waste of time. It's
Yeah.
just a learning opportunity. This is an opportunity. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about your book and what is like the biggest takeaway in your book?
Yeah. So my book is that guide on how to make better decisions or live with the ones you've made. And so a few things you'll find in my book. We give you some quick tips on how to make some quick decisions when you're like stuck in that indecision. How do I move forward? How do I make the right decision? And then I go into a formula that I've created for making a lasting change in your life. And what that is the clarity trifecta. And it is the formula that's going to help you stop spinning, get into action, take the steps, build your confidence to get out there and make a change that you want to make in your life.
I love that. Amen. So, okay. So basically, what made you and what was your decision on making this book? Because I know like titles are important. Just
Yes.
having the energy and the capacity to create a book takes a lot of time and effort. So like why this book?
Yeah, great question. So I was one of those people who, when the speaker's up in the front of the room and they're like, who here wants to write a book? And like 90% of the room raises their hand. I was one of the 10% who did not raise my hand. I was like, I don't want to write a book. I don't care to write a book. I didn't know what I would want to write a book on, but I love speaking. And I got into a speaker program that part of our process was to write a book. And so I was like being forced, I felt like in some ways to write a book. I was like,
Oh,
what am I going to
wow.
write this book about? What do I want to really leave my mark on? And what really means, has some value to me? Like, what are the things that I've learned throughout my life? And decision making was something that I kept coming back to because I see so many people struggling with how do I make the right decision? And then they say they want to do something, but they're not taking the steps to actually make it happen. They say they want a better life. They say they want a better job. They say they want to start a business. They say they want a better relationship, or get out of a bad relationship, or they want to do something different in their life. But instead of making it happen, they sit with that decision. And the truth is, they already made the decision. They decided that that's actually not what they want. They just want to talk about it. They don't actually want to make it happen. And so I want to see people get out of just talking about it and actually making it happen. And that's where the book was born from. And the title, you already made the decision, you're just not happy with it, is because I see that all the time. People say they want something different, but the truth is they've made that decision to be exactly where they are, because everything in our life is based around the decisions we make. And we can wake up at any moment and make a different decision. But most people don't. They keep making the same decisions every day, day after day, and getting the same results. And then they complain about it and they're, unhappy about it. And they post it on social media, but they don't actually take action and make the change.
Oh, I like that because I recently have realized that I am an emotional eater.
Mm,
And the only way that I came into that like conclusion was because I was honestly tired of the decisions I was making. Like I was tired of seeing a certain number on the scale. And so I really asked myself like that question, like, man, Linda, what is it? Like, what is the root cause here of your weight? And I've learned it was the decisions I was making. It was the decisions of the habits I was making. And that was not being cognizant of what I was eating. And if I was stressed out, instead of like looking at that emotion, right?
hmm.
I'd rather eat. Like I'll just,
Yeah.
stuff my face with something because I'm stressed out. I'm gonna go ahead and eat something. And I saw that it was a decision I was making. What was the root cause, right?
Yeah.
My decision, right? And so we can get stuck with that, right?
Exactly. And you're choosing comfort, right? Because you're in that moment of stress and you want something that's you feel like is going to make you feel good. And so the things that you enjoy, the sugar, all of those things are those comfort foods. And it's hard, it's easy to just go grab them and be like, okay, this at least this makes me feel good. If the rest of my life is not going so great, or this moment isn't going the way I want it to,
Yeah.
at least there's something I can control that makes me think I feel good, but later we feel bad about it.
Yeah, yeah, and I really aimed more to the savory portions of the sweet, but because
Yeah.
I like salty foods. Sweets really make me sick, so I was like, no sweets, but some sweets I will do, like donuts. Those are good because it's like they're kind of salty, but they're also sweet. So
Yeah. We
all
all have
right.
our little downfalls, right?
Yeah, okay. So Tammy, tell us a little bit about your background. So how you started, where you started, why this, right? Like how did
hmm.
this passion come to life?
Yeah, it was not what I thought I was going to end up doing. So I started off as a CPA. I call myself a recovering CPA now because I've gotten out of that and, worked my way up in the corporate environment and made a few career transitions along the way, but spent most of my career in the real estate investment management space. And I got to a point in my career where we were going through another reorganization and they were talking to me about taking on an expanded role. And I was pretty excited about it. And we were, kept taking longer and longer and longer. We were having more and more discussions around it as a large Fortune 100 company. And so it got to a point where I would hit my 12-week mark where I was pregnant. And I was like, I need to go tell them that I'm pregnant with my second because I had had multiple miscarriages prior to that. And so I had kept it pretty quiet up until that point. I went in and told my managers that I was pregnant. And of course, they were excited for me and congratulated me. But then everything went silent when it came to the reorganization. And I stepped back and I'm like, okay, what's happening? And they're like, oh, it's just going up for approvals. And, it turned into weeks. And finally, I got a phone call from one of my managers and they said, can you come up to my office? And I'm like, well, that's odd because I had two reporting managers and one of them I never really talked to. And that was the one who called me. And so I went up to his office and there sitting was my other manager and I never talked to them together. So now I'm like, okay, something's really up. And they proceeded to tell me
Hold
that,
on.
yeah,
Hold on. First of all, let's just pause there. I want to say I'm so sorry. I know miscarriages are extremely difficult and I do apologize that not apologize, but I'm so sorry you've gone through that. Um I always feel like very like man, what can I do, right, in those moments? But
yeah,
okay, so this is pretty big deal. how do you feel? What was your like your feeling when you like walked into that room? How were you feeling?
I like as soon as I saw them both sitting there, I'm like, something's happening. Like something that's not good.
Did you
That's how I
feel it
felt.
in
I'm
your
like,
heart? Did your like heart drop or
yeah,
did you
I
have
could
like
feel
a
it in my
like what did your
stomach.
intuition? Yeah, what did your intuition say, you know?
Yeah, I could definitely feel it in my stomach. I'm like, okay, there's something about to go down here. With still that uncertainty of exactly what that was going to be. But so I sat down and I was just kind of very hesitant, just sitting back, ready to listen and not quite ready for what I was going to hear.
Yeah, okay, so go ahead. So boom, you sat
Yeah.
down.
So I sat down and they proceeded to tell me that not only was I not getting the expanded role we talked about, but they were going to be taking all my current direct reports away. I was going to be moving under another manager who knew nothing about what I did. And they still expected me to be responsible for everything I was already overseeing, but without any direct reports. And went on to tell me a few more things about people within my organization, my management, and where they were going to go, which I knew didn't align with what their goals were. And so then I also was feeling almost guilty that they were putting my people and the people I was responsible for in positions that I knew they didn't want because we had had those conversations.
Oh, wow.
And so I started shaking and I said, I think I need to walk out of the room before I say something I'm going to regret. And that's what I said to him. I'm like, I need to get up and leave right now because I was in shock. It was like,
Of
this isn't what we
course.
talked
Yeah.
about. This is what's happening. And so I went back to my office. I closed my door and I cried for the first time ever at my job. And I pulled myself together and I'm like, I got to find out why this is happening. Like, why did we go from having this conversation of, okay, we're going to expand your role to now we're kind of taking everything out of the way? And went back in and asked them, I'm like, why? Why is this happening? And what they said next hit me harder than what they had even told me before. And they said, Tammy, this wasn't up to us. This isn't what we think you deserve, but we did not have control over this. And I'm sitting there thinking, if I don't have control and my managers don't have control, who is controlling where my career is going? And it was in
Yeah.
that moment that I realized that I didn't want to live that way. I didn't want to live with someone else pulling the strings or deciding where I was going to go. And I had to step back and say, okay, what do I want to do going forward? And it took a while. It took me some time to process what was happening and really understand the impact, but also to figure out, I thought I was on a trajectory. I didn't, at that point, I hadn't considered starting a business. And so I started working with a coach, I started working with an energy healer. And throughout that process, I realized that it was the combination of those things that I wanted to help other people with. And so I started off, as a leadership coach. I had always called myself a mentor manager. And I liked helping people, figure out their next career step and where they wanted to go. And so I was very passionate after that incident too about leadership and how leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sorry, I'm so
Go
sorry to
ahead.
interrupt you, but I feel like there was such and sorry listeners, but we are going to go back to finish the story. But I feel as though there's such a huge block that was missed, which was what did you do after that? Like
Yes.
you got the bad news. You got
Yes.
the bad news. Like what were your next steps? How did you get over it?
Oh,
I
that took,
understand you brought on, yeah, you brought on
yeah.
some healers because I can honestly say that that is pretty dramatic, right? You just
Hmm.
got, it's I feel like there's a little bit of embarrassment there too, right? You're walking in your room, two people that you're kind of confiding to have this control, and it's like you have like no choice. Like, is it me, right? You kind of have like that,
Right.
like, is it me? Is it what I'm doing? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Like, what did I do wrong? So you can feel like, I don't know, like I put myself in your shoes and I feel like, hey, like what's going on, and you don't even have, if someone else that's behind the scenes making that decision, you have no idea who that person is, you're
Hmm.
kind of like put on a spot, you're in the spotlight, another person is just, who is this other person, right? So it's kind of like,
Yes. Yeah, and there's a little more to the story, but I kind of knew who it was. It was one of the senior leaders
Okay.
who, I knew some things that had happened in my area
Mm,
with him, and I don't think he liked the fact that I knew there was, so there was a lot of circumstances
yeah.
behind it. But in the end, I'm sitting there, trying to figure out how to move past it.
Yes.
And, initially I was like, okay, I'm just going to bite my tongue, work through my maternity leave, just do my job. And when I come back, then I'll, figure out that next step. And when I came back, my first instinct wasn't still to just go out and start a job. I mean, I did start thinking about what those things could be, but I reached out to my business partners who I had great relationships with and said, I'm interested in switching areas. If you have something that comes up, let me know. And 5 o'clock on a Friday night, I get a message from one of my peers and said, we have an opening. I'd like you to come over to our technology group and lead this technology group. And I was like, yes, like perfect. Like it
Amen.
gave me that in between to get out of the group I was in, but still, you know, be able to expand my responsibilities, expand what I was doing, and then be able to step back and say, okay, what is that next thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so, I feel like your story is like a testament to like the importance of like your network, like who
Mm,
you know,
absolutely.
and like really just cultivating those connections and reaching out to people and not being afraid. Say, hey, I need some help, or I'm looking for XYZ. Do you know anything? I think that's so important. And that's one of the reasons why we have Monetizing Mompreneurs Facebook group, because I want to cultivate that connection and, facilitate that network,
Yeah.
right? So boom. So you got your opportunity, boom, connecting the dots, you got your network, you got plugged in, but now you're really trying to move past this incident, right? So you can have your productivity higher, and
Mhm.
really I bet you probably realize like, okay, what do I want, right? Because these people are controlling a lot of the things of my career.
Yeah.
So you went to a place of like, what do I want? What do I want to do, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So now let's kick it off from there. 'Cause that's where you were.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that was when I always say you've got to stop and step back kind of and look at it. Like, okay, I've come so far, but you've got to take those moments where you just stop and almost take a step back so you can see what's really going on and assess, like, where do I want to go next? What do I really want? And some of the things that were really important to me were flexibility. My kids were young at the time, and I wanted to be able to have some flexibility with what I do and when I do things. And I did, a bit of traveling with the organization, but I wanted to travel in my own terms. I mean, I love travel, but like I want to be able to take people on retreats and lead retreats. And so now we've done, retreats in Italy and in the mountains and all these different places. And so I was looking at what do I want? And part of that was that freedom, the freedom to be able to make some of your own choices, the freedom to set my life up the way I wanted to, and the freedom to decide I can pull the plug when I want to pull the plug. Someone else isn't going to pull it on me.
That's so good. And so then how did you transition? So you got yourself out of there.
Yeah.
How did you transition into leadership? You started in leadership, and now where you're going? Where are you? You're in
Yeah.
leadership.
I started in leadership coaching. I actually went through my coaching certification while I was still working full time, trying to build my business, as so many mompreneurs do, right? Or trying to juggle it all. And after I was doing leadership and career transition coaching for a while, I had so many people start coming to me saying, how did you do it? How did you go from being a VP in a Fortune 100 company to starting your own business? And, the curiosity that they had is one of the biggest things that I heard when I finally just, decided to leave and gave my resignation and told people what I was doing. The biggest thing people said to me is, aren't you scared?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And it just shows me how much fear people are in to make that leap, to make that transition. And my response to them was, I mean, are there things I'm afraid of? Sure. But I wouldn't be doing this if I was living in the fear.
Oh,
And
that's
you have
good.
to get
Living in the
past
fear.
there. Yeah. You've got to get to a point where your desire and what you're doing is going to drive you more than the fear of holding you back.
Okay, I like this. I want to stay here for a little bit. So let's talk
Yeah.
about fear. I know that's something that many of us go through. It's just a prerequisite for pursuing your dream, for pursuing your
Mhm.
calling, or whatever it is that you want to do in life. And I really believe that everything is a risk. Sometimes people think like if they get a corporate position or it's like a done deal, like their life is set. But even that has its own fears. It just seems more stable because a business can go out of
Right.
business, right? So so entrepreneurship does seem like there is a leap there. There is a leap of faith to take there. So when people come to you and say, "Weren't you afraid?" and they come to you with their fears, what do you tell them?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is understanding what you really want and getting really clear
Mm,
on those desires. Because if that's what you really desire, and there is a big enough reason, a big enough why behind why you want that, then you need that to be your driver versus the fears. And so, part of it is getting that clarity. And I talk about this in my book as well. Like anytime you're making a big transition, no matter what it is, it all starts with clarity. It starts with getting the right questions answered because so many people are stuck in the fear because they don't know exactly what they want to do. They don't know how they're going to make it happen. They don't know who can help them do it. And so when you start getting the clarity and getting some of those questions answered, then it helps to build your confidence, your courage, and your commitment.
okay, awesome. So, okay, another question. So, so you that's the question that you had a lot, right? And when you receive those questions, what did you do?
Yeah. So first, I start asking the questions back to the clients, right? So getting an understanding of where they are, specifically, what do they need? And so, I was just having a conversation with someone earlier today who, she's been following me for years and we've I've worked with her when on the corporate leadership side, but she keeps coming back to me saying, I want to start a business, but then she gets the fear cut sets in is like, I don't know if it's the right time. I don't know if I should do this or just make a career transition. And so we were reconnecting this morning and I said, I feel like, we keep coming back to the same spot. You have this deep desire within you to make this happen. There's something within you that wants to start your own business, but these fears around not knowing exactly how to do it, not knowing, we were talking about the puzzle pieces because she feels like, there's all these different puzzle pieces that I have, and I just don't know how to put them all together. And one of the people, Mo, who went through my program this just a few months ago, when she got done, she's like, Tami, I felt like, and before I came to you, I felt like there were all these puzzle pieces. I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know how to put them together. And it was just all chaos. She's like, and you just tell us this is what you need to do. And then you do this. And you put the puzzle pieces together for us and make it so simple. And so when you lay it out and can give them the guidance that they need to start answering these questions that are holding them back, then they can move forward more confidently.
So good. Okay, so you decided that you're getting all these questions, right? Like, oh man, how did you do it? How did you put, transition? And
Mhm.
so here's when you made your decision, right? Like, okay, I'm going to pivot from my leadership. I'm going to go ahead and pivot into this area because I'm naturally attracting, with ease, people that need to get started, right?
Yes. And it took one of my coaches like hitting me over the head saying, Tami, would you just go help these people? Like she's like, they're asking for your help. Would you just go help them? And I'm like, but I gotta stick to my thing, right? And she's
Yeah.
like, no, this is the time. This is what people are now coming to you for and want your support with. And so sometimes it takes someone else pointing it out for you and saying, hey, listen,
Mm.
there's this whole other market over here that really wants you. Are you going to go help them?
Yes. Yes, and that's one of the things that I ask people is like, what are you getting the most questions from?
Mhm.
Gain your like if you're going to make that digital product, if you're going to make that course, or if you're going to make that program, what is it that you're going to be answering, right? And
Yeah.
what are you naturally attracting with ease, effortlessly, that people are just in your DMs, like
Mhm.
asking you those questions? Because
Yeah,
that's where I find where the gold can be, right? Where your sweet
absolutely.
spot can be, because this
Mhm.
is actually a need and people feel that connection with you, that you're able to facilitate that need, right?
Yeah.
So boom, your own mentor, your own coach is like hitting you over the head. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's opportunity right there. And so now you started helping people transition, I'm thinking, right, from the corporate into entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
How
Yep,
did
those
that
were
transition look like? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so, it was a bit of me warming up to the idea at first, like, okay, is this where I want to go? And working with a couple people to make sure that it is what I wanted to do. And then once I got into it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love these people. I love helping them and serving them because, one of the struggles I had, and I'm sure you probably saw something similar in your business, but when you make that leap and you get going, I always say, as soon as you put that entrepreneur hat on, every social media out there knows that you are now trying to start a business and you get targeted with all these ads saying like, I've got the one thing that's going to make you millions. I've got the solution for
Oh
every
my
lead that
gosh.
you need. And
It's
so,
crazy.
isn't it? Like, how many
Yeah.
of those a day do you get? And when you're
Yeah.
new as an entrepreneur, you don't know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And the thing is, all of those things work at some point, but they don't all work for startups. And so being able to understand, okay, exactly what do I need to do first? Then what do I introduce in my business? And what's that next step? And that's what I try to help people understand is you cannot jump into what you see every influencer doing because you're not at that stage of your business yet. We've got to get the foundations in place yet. And then we're going to start layering some things on in the right order to make that happen so that you can go through those phases faster to get to the influencer that you're watching and want to be like. But it doesn't start there.
Yeah, I like that, because there's a gifting in that, working with the beginner, or working with someone in the middle, or working in someone, at a different level, right? There's all the scale, right? Scaling.
Yes.
So one of the things I did like that you said was talking about like getting started in the beginner, and like you don't know what to do. You had someone reach out to you. They were like, "Hey, I don't know which direction to take." Um, then you come in and say, "Hey, here are the puzzle pieces." Right? So how does that process look like? Someone comes to you, boom. Do they have an idea? Like, this is my idea, or do they like, I don't know what I want to do, but I do know I want to be an entrepreneur. How is it that they come to you?
Yeah, I work with a couple phases of people. I say there's the phase zero, I call them the dreamer, that they're just like dreaming of doing something different. Sometimes they have an idea of what it is, sometimes they have no clue. They just know they want to do something different. They want to start a business, but they don't know how, they don't know what it is, and they haven't made any money yet. So they're in the dreamer phase, even those that, know what they want to do. They're still like just dreaming about it. They may have been started taking courses or doing different programs, but they're really not making money. So they don't have a business yet. And
Mm,
so that's kind of the first phase of people that I work with and helping them get that clarity around what it is, how to turn that business into that idea into a profitable business. And then I also work with people who are a little bit further along and they've been in business for a while, but they're still not getting that consistent income. And so they're in that fear of, am I going to have to go back and get a job? Do I need to do something different? Is this not the right business for me? And they're trying to figure out how to make more consistent income. And so I have programs for each of those two groups of people that are two different programs that I work with people on in my boot camp for the startups. And then I have a business school, the Inspired Business School, for people that are ongoing and continuing to build and scale and grow their businesses to get to that consistent income.
that's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Now, one of the parts that I wanted to go into, because there's so many different facets and there's so many different directions that we can go here. And I know that we have a limited time. So I want to make sure I get the goods all of the goods of what our audience I think would need, you know, because we have monetizing mompreneurs and we have fur moms and we have,
Yeah.
you know, plant moms. I
Yes.
consider all of them mompreneurs. Because there's a nurturing there. But
Mhm.
so when they have this fear and they're trying to transition, what do you advise them to do? They have their corporate and they're kind of like doing the freelance, but they have the corporate and but they're freelancing. So when do they take that leap? You
Oh,
know,
yes.
should they have like good, right? I know. I want to know this one.
Yes, it's a good question. Everyone's always like, when is the right time? So
Yes.
there's not an exact formula, right? Like I've heard some coaches say you need to be making 60% of your revenue on the side or 80% before you go full time. And the thing is, like, if you were making that much working part-time, like there's the balance just isn't quite there. So I think it depends on a few things. One, where you're at from a financial standpoint, where you're at from a health and wellness standpoint, from where you're at in their current position. Because if you're in a job where you're not being treated properly or things are stressing you out, you need to leave a lot faster than someone who's just kind of like, I'm okay with my job. I'm okay with it for now. I just know that in, a year or two, I'd like to semi-retire and go to the next job or start my business, or that I have like a certain period of time that I want to make things happen. But one thing I will say is I I like to set very specific goals. So, for me, one of the things that I did was I started looking at, I was going through my coaching certification, started working with clients, and I set a very specific goal of what I wanted from my bonus from my corporate job the next year in order to leave my business. And it was a number that was much greater than anything I had ever gotten for my bonus. So it was a stretch. It was not something that I was just going to like expect to get. And when the day I kept like saying it to myself, like every day I'd be walking into the office, and from the garage where I parked my car to my office, I was like, instead of getting like frustrated that I have to go into the office, I'm like, today's the day. I'm going to give my resignation, and I'm doing my little like happy dance. And I'm thinking about the day that I'm going to turn in my resignation. I'm thinking about getting that bonus that I had set myself up for, because I knew if I could get that, then it gave me some stability to be able to start my business. And so those are some of the factors I think you've got to take into play, because the day that my boss called me and told me what my bonus was going to be that year, it was the exact dollar amount that I had been thinking about for months. Like not a dollar more, not a dollar less, the exact number.
Oh my goodness. I just went like I had my phone, I had it on mute, my mic, but I just did a deep because that is so good. That is so good. And you know, our words are so powerful.
They
You know, life and
are.
death are in the power of the tongue, and we are
Mm-hmm.
able to create realities, guys. We are able to do this. And that's one of the things I say to myself right now. I'm growing a team. I am constantly saying to myself, I have my dream team. I have my dream
Mm-hmm.
team.
Yes. I love it. Absolutely. Like we've got to put those thoughts and those feelings in our mind. Like I have daily reminders that come up on my phone for very specific goals, for things that I want to do. Like you've got to be really clear on what it is you want
Yes.
and then program your life to make it happen.
Oh yeah, because the mind, whatever you're telling your mind, the mind is so
Mhm.
powerful. And I think
Absolutely.
that a lot of us don't know the capacity that our minds have. Like, take a look at your life. That is actually what you believe that you deserve or want in your life. Is your reality is what you desire in some form of facet
Yeah.
is what you desire in your life or what you believe that you should have, you know, as a product of your thought life. And so I really believe in being cognizant of our words and being cognizant of how we're thinking because it will somewhat articulate into our physical lives. Like one of the
Hmm.
things I did, I remember back a long time ago, and I recently did it again as an example. And I told someone, I was saying, this is what I've done, right? I take my bills and I say, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for these bills. Just as easily as these bills can come in, so can money come in, right?
Yes.
Guess what started happening? I started receiving checks in the mail. And because I said that example, you know what I just received? I received a check in the mail.
I love it.
I did. So it's so powerful. And
It
sometimes
is.
you, it's so powerful. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to come in for whatever reason. But when you
Mhm.
start practicing and being cognizant of your words, you start seeing things like come into your world. Even in the desires of your hearts, like being cognizant of what it is that you truly want. You know, what is in your heart? Are you excited for something? A simple trick is also if you're feeling fear, to switch it to excitement that something amazing is going to come in. Just switch it.
Yes.
Don't dwell in that fear. Don't dwell that that's what's going to happen. Okay, so back to your story. So you're there. Oh my gosh. You get called in. You get the bonus at exactly what you were believing for, right? And speaking into existence. What happened next?
Yeah. So right before I had gotten this call, about 3 months before that, I also found out that they were letting my boss go and they gave me a promotion, an expanded role. So not only like was I in this moment of, okay, I just got the exact number that I was like said, if I get this, I'm going to leave. But I was also in a position where I just got promoted and took on expanded role and like, lots of things were shifting and happening. And so I did go in and give my resignation. And when I walked out, that feeling was just like amazing, right? It was like the relief. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the work that I did. I just didn't love the politics. I didn't love some of the strings that were being pulled in different ways. And so knowing that I was at this point that I could say, I'm going full time in my business. This is what I do now. It was just such a relief.
Wow, I got chills. Honestly, I got chills from that story because it's just so impactful, you know. So okay, so we can see that you've pretty much decided to have a little bit of a cushion before you went into a
Mhm.
full time because you needed the time, right, to just recoup, set up your marketing strategy, set up your stuff so you can really like go full steam ahead.
Yeah.
So what did that cushion cover for you? Did it cover 6 months, 3 months, a year? Like what did it cover?
Well, it probably could have covered a year or more, but we decided, we didn't change our lifestyle exactly right away. And so it probably lasted about 6 months just because we were still living under the premise of what I was making before. But it gave me that ability to just know that my family was going to be okay and we could make things work. And, during that time, I was looking at what do I need to do? Where do I need to grow? How do I need to change? How do I need to be a better entrepreneur and really step into this role and started learning some of the things that I knew I wasn't great at, like sales. I mean, I kept
Mm.
saying I was not a salesperson. Like, I can't remember how many times I've said that. And now, like, I realize, one, I realize sales is service, right? If I am not
Yes.
offering my services to people, then I don't have a business. And so
Mm.
reframing a lot of that and understanding where it comes from. I always tell people now, like, do not say you're not a salesperson if you're in business, because that's all you do. All you do is, I mean, it's not sales, right? It's being able to
Communicating.
service people. Yes,
It's just a communication. It's just a talk.
absolutely.
Like someone tells you, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," and you have the solution. Hey, I got the solution. It's just a simple
Absolutely.
exchange, and you can get it right now.
Yes. And you're doing them a disservice if you don't offer it to them.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. 100%. I totally believe that. It depends, but that's where, there's a whole nother avenue with sales. But the one thing that I will leave behind with sales, if you don't believe in the price of what you're selling, what makes you think the other person, the other side of you will? Because that
Right.
energy, they will feel it. And it's really
Absolutely.
about your energy. You believe in the product, your energy, your vocabulary, everything that you
Mhm.
are saying is going to articulate the belief in the product, right? And that's when someone is like, okay, like you believe in it. I'm more apt to also consider in the belief of it.
Yes, 100% agree. Yes. You've got to
Oh,
show that you have the confidence in it. Because if you don't believe, no one
amen.
else is.
No, okay. And we have a few minutes. One last question.
All right.
When was it that you said, I got this? Like, because you had a 6 month time frame. You're like, I got to get this done within 6 months. I got to be profitable and at the level that I'm used to, right? Did you set
Mm-hmm.
that goal? Or was it like, I'll see, like, how did that look for you?
Oh, good question. So for me, it was, I thought it was going to be easy in some ways, right? So I'm like, okay, all I have to do is, get a few clients and this is going to be easy. And when I started doing it, I realized like I ended up spending so much time, what I call behind the screen, instead of out in front of people initially. And it's one of the bigger lessons that I learned in the beginning. And what I really help people with now is understanding the balance of, like, you feel like you have to build so much for your business. Like you've got to build a website and you want to have a freebie and you've got to have all of these things and social media, and it just gets overwhelming. And the truth is, you don't have to have a lot of that when you're starting. You can start without really any of it by having conversations, by talking to people, to being clear on what it is you're offering, and start making the money before you go spend all the money on building all of these other things. And so those were some of the lessons that I had learned early on, and realized like I got to start getting out. Like I'm spending all this time like trying to build funnels and all of these different things and taking all of these courses and going to all these events and all these different things, and realize that there's a point when you got to stop absorbing and stop the learning aspect of it, which so many new entrepreneurs are in that learning phase. And some of them spend like 6 years just like going to events and trying to learn, and they're not really implementing any of it. And you got to start taking those actions.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I can continue and
We
keep
could go
on
on
like
forever.
I know it's so good, but it's so needed. And I feel like this conversation is needed. And I'm so thankful for you coming on the show, Tammy. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on my website, Tami Jaffe, TamiJaffe.com. But I also wanted to share a gift with your audience, if that's okay.
Yes, of course. Love
Yeah.
gifts.
So I want to share with those of you who are thinking about making that leap, or even those of you who have started to make the leap, but you still haven't gotten to that consistent income in your business, go grab my Jumpstart Kit. It's the Corporate to Cash Jumpstart Kit, and it's to help you go from employees to entrepreneurs without all of the headaches.
Amen. I love that. Should grab it. I would if I was like
Yes,
transitioning. Thank you so much, Tammy.
absolutely. It was such a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have a chance, stop by the website at lindamendable.com. Sign up for the Blog Cure, which is an awesome, awesome course that I created that will help you set up your blog or take your blog to the next level. And join us over at Monetizing Mompreneurs Facebook group. I just want to say again, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Easy.